We live in a time where knowledge is more accessible than ever. Answers are at our fingertips. A search bar, a few keystrokes, and the entire history of human thought is laid out before us. And yet, superstition, conspiracy, and deception thrive. Misinformation spreads faster than truth. People trust their feelings over facts. How is it possible that in an age of information, we remain so easily deceived? Why do people cling to comforting lies, even when reality contradicts them? Why do logical arguments fail to change minds? And more importantly, if deception is so pervasive, how do you make sure you're not the one being manipulated? Carl Sagan warned about this long before the internet amplified the problem. He called it a demon-haunted world. A world where myths and illusions shape our beliefs more than reason. A world where people mistake authority for truth, where those in power exploit ignorance, and where skepticism is not encouraged but punished. But this isn't just about exposing the problem. It's about understanding why it happens. Because once you do, you start to see through the illusions. You recognize the patterns, the tactics, the subtle ways you're being nudged towards certain beliefs, certain emotions, certain actions. What you'll hear in the next few minutes is not just a summary of Sagan's ideas. It's a way to sharpen your mind against deception, to build an internal defense against the forces that profit from your confusion. If you value clarity, if you want to strengthen your ability to think independently, stick around. People don't reject critical thinking because they're stupid. They reject it because it's hard. It's uncomfortable. It forces you to confront the possibility that you might be wrong. And nothing feels more threatening to the human ego than that. Belief is effortless. It slides into the mind like water finding cracks in stone. Truth, on the other hand, is sharp. It demands work. It demands that you challenge what you've been taught, question the people you trust, and worst of all, admit that certainty is an illusion. Most people would rather live with a beautiful lie than struggle with an inconvenient truth. This isn't just personal, it's biological. The brain is a pattern-seeking machine, hardwired to make connections, even where none exist. It evolved to prioritize speed over accuracy, survival over reflection. It sees faces in the clouds. It assumes danger in the rustling of leaves. It leaps to conclusions, then defends them as if its life depends on it. Because once upon a time, it did. And then there's the social cost. Humans are tribal creatures. We crave belonging more than we crave truth. Challenge the wrong belief, and you don't just risk being wrong, you risk being outcast. Think about how dangerous that was for most of human history. If your survival depends on the group, questioning the group is a kind of suicide. That instinct hasn't gone away. It's why people cling to comforting narratives, even when the evidence shreds them apart. It's why the moment you question someone's deeply held belief, they don't engage, they attack. Their brain isn't evaluating arguments. It's defending its identity. This is why intelligence doesn't protect against delusion. Smart people aren't immune to false beliefs. They're just better at rationalizing them. The more articulate someone is, the better they are at spinning narratives that protect their worldview. They don't analyze their biases. They reinforce them. If critical thinking were easy, everyone would do it. But it's not. It's an act of rebellion against your own mind, against your culture, against the very wiring that has kept your species alive. That's why most people avoid it. That's why they choose ignorance, not because they know no better, but because deep down, they don't want to. If people naturally resist critical thinking, what fills the gap? Manipulation. And those who understand it, governments, corporations, influencers, con artists, use it with precision. Not by force, not by threats, but by something far more powerful: control of perception. You don't have to convince people of the truth. You just have to make them feel like they already know it. That's how deception works. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't argue. It seeps in unchallenged because it plays to emotions rather than reason. And emotions override logic every time. Fear is the oldest tool of control. Make people afraid, and they will trade their freedom, their privacy, and their ability to think clearly for the illusion of safety. Politicians have built entire careers on this. Fear of the outsider, fear of collapse, fear of being left behind. A terrified mind does not analyze, it obeys. Then there's repetition. Say something often enough, and it doesn't matter if it's false. It becomes familiar, and the brain mistakes familiarity for truth. That's why propaganda doesn't need to be smart. It just needs to be loud, consistent, and everywhere. False authority is another. People don't question information when it comes from someone they admire, someone they trust, or someone who wears the right uniform. It doesn't matter if that person has no expertise. All that matters is the perception of credibility. And credibility is easy to manufacture. And then there's the most insidious tactic of all division. If you can make people define themselves by their beliefs, they will defend those beliefs as if their life depends on it. They will attack anyone who questions them, not as an intellectual opponent, but as an enemy. Get people to fight each other, and they'll never notice who is pulling the strings. This is why manipulation is so effective. It doesn't rely on logic. It doesn't need evidence. It plays on the mind's natural weaknesses: fear, familiarity, obedience, tribalism. And unless you know how to recognize these tools, they will be used against you every single day. If deception is everywhere, how do you defend yourself? How do you cut through the noise, the propaganda, the carefully crafted illusions designed to shape your thoughts without you even realizing it? Carl Sagan had an answer. He called it the Baloney detection kit, a set of mental tools to separate reality from nonsense. Not a list of what to believe, but a way to think sharply, skeptically, and independently. First, demand evidence. Real evidence. Not anecdotes. Not testimonials. Not, "I just feel like it's true." If a claim is extraordinary, the proof should be just as extraordinary. Anything less, and it belongs in the trash. Second, beware of correlation disguised as causation. Just because two things happen at the same time doesn't mean one caused the other. Every con artist, every snake oil salesman, every politician who wants to sell you a dream relies on this trick. Crime went up after X law was passed. People who do Y are more successful. This one weird trick changed my life. No, slow down. Look deeper. Third, ask yourself, can this be tested? If a claim cannot be proven false under any circumstances, it's not science. It's religion. And that doesn't mean religious belief is bad. It just means it belongs in a different category. A claim that dodges scrutiny, that shifts its goalposts every time it's challenged, is not seeking truth. It's seeking followers. Fourth, apply Occam's razor. If two explanations exist, the simpler one is usually correct. Not always, but usually. People love complex conspiracy theories because they make reality feel more dramatic, more purposeful. But most deception is mundane. Greed, incompetence, laziness, these explain far more than grand, orchestrated plots. Fifth, watch out for emotional reasoning. If you believe something because it feels true, you're not thinking, you're reacting. Feelings are not evidence. Feelings can be manipulated. The most effective lies are the ones that align with what we already want to believe. Finally, flip the question, what would it take to prove me wrong? If your answer is nothing, then you're not thinking critically. You're defending a belief, not testing a hypothesis. A real skeptic doesn't just question others. They question themselves first. These tools aren't just for spotting bad arguments. They're for self-defense. The world is full of people who want to control what you think, what you believe, and how you see reality. The Baloney detection kit is how you fight back. But having the tools isn't enough. You have to use them every day, with everything, even with the things you want to be true. Because the moment you stop questioning, you become the easiest person to fool. Rationality isn't just about intelligence. It's about survival. In a world built on persuasion, distraction, and outright deception, the ability to think clearly is an act of defiance. People like to believe that truth wins by default, that if something is logical, reasonable, and backed by evidence, it will naturally rise to the top. But history shows the opposite. The world isn't ruled by facts. It's ruled by narratives. And the people who control those narratives, the advertisers, the politicians, the media giants, don't want you thinking critically. They want you feeling. They want you reacting. Because a reactive mind is easy to manipulate. Look around. Misinformation spreads faster than truth. People are more loyal to their beliefs than to reality. The moment you challenge a comforting illusion, you're not met with curiosity. You're met with hostility. The system doesn't reward skepticism. It punishes it. And that's not an accident, because rationality makes you harder to control. It makes you immune to emotional bait, resistant to fear-mongering, unwilling to accept easy answers. It forces you to question authority not blindly reject it, but demand that it justify itself. And that is dangerous to those who rely on your obedience. Most people will never take this path. They will choose comfort over clarity. They will defend the illusions that give them security. They will attack anyone who tries to pull back the curtain, because seeing the world for what it really is isn't just painful, it's isolating. It means accepting that most of what you've been told is a lie, that the people you trust might be wrong. That certainty is an illusion. But for those willing to pay that price, rationality offers something far more valuable than comfort. It offers freedom. Freedom from manipulation, from blind obedience, from the exhausting cycle of outrage and fear that keeps the masses in check. Thinking critically doesn't make you smarter. It makes you dangerous. It makes you someone who can't be easily swayed, who doesn't fall in line just because everyone else does, who refuses to accept a narrative simply because it's popular. That kind of mind is rare. And in a world where deception is the default, it's revolutionary. Knowing how to think critically is not just a skill, it's a responsibility. Because once you see through the illusion, you can't unsee it. You recognize the manipulation. You see how fear is weaponized, how truth is bent, how people are led not by reason, but by impulse. And you realize just how fragile reality is when the majority refuses to question it. Most people will never break free. They will believe what is convenient. They will defend what is familiar. They will surrender their ability to think in exchange for the comfort of certainty. You will see this, and you will be tempted to wake them up, to argue, to show them the flaws, the contradictions, the outright absurdity of the narratives they cling to. And you will fail, because truth is not enough. Facts do not win against emotions. The mind protects its delusions like armor, and the harder you push, the stronger the resistance. People don't change because they were proven wrong. They change because they choose to. Because something inside them makes them question, makes them wonder, makes them uncomfortable enough to seek clarity. Your responsibility is not to force them. It's to remain rational in a world that is, to hold the line against deception, to apply skepticism not just to others, but to yourself, to challenge your own biases, your own assumptions, your own deeply held beliefs, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because that is the real test of a rational mind. Not just to see through lies, but to recognize that you are not immune to them, to accept that you, too, can be wrong, that even your most logical conclusions might one day be overturned, that the pursuit of truth is not about reaching an endpoint, but about staying in motion, constantly questioning, constantly refining, constantly resisting the easy path. Most will choose comfort. A few will choose clarity. And the moment you choose clarity, you take on the responsibility that comes with it. To think when others refuse to question when others obey, to remain rational even when it would be easier not to be. The world will not reward you for this. It may isolate you, It may exhaust you, but the alternative is worse. Because the moment you stop thinking for yourself, someone else will do it for you. And they will not have your best interests in mind. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more insightful videos.